Good day, my name is Angel Isabinian and our topic is all about artistic principle. So art as visual input. So visual art manifests itself through media, ideas, themes, and sheer creative imagination. Yet all of these rely on basic structural principles that, like the elements we've been studying, combine to give voice to artistic expressions. Incorporating the principle into your artistic vocabulary not only allows you to objectively describe artworks you may not understand, but contributes in the search for their meaning. So the first way to think about a principle is that it is something that can be repeatedly and dependable done with elements to produce some sort of visual effect in a composition. So the principles are based on sensory responses to visual input. Elements appear to have visual weight, movements, etc. So the principle help govern what might occur when particular elements are arranged in a particular way. So using a chemistry analogy, so the principle are the ways that the elements stick together to make a chemical. So principle can be confusing, right? So there are at least two very different but connect ways of thinking principle. It is principle can be used to describe an operational cause and effects such as bright things come forward and dull things recede. Next is a principle can describe a high quality standard to strive for, such as unity is better than chaos or variation beats boredom in a work of art. So the word principle can be used for every different purposes. So another way to think about principle is that it is a way to express a value judgment about a composition. So, a list of this effect may not be comprehensive, but these are some that are more commonly used: the unity, balance, and etc. So when we say a painting has unity, we are making a value judgment. So too much unity without variety is too much, and variation without unity is chaos. So the principle of design help you to carefully plan and organize the element of art so that you will hold interest and command attention. This is sometimes referred to a visual impact. So in any work of art, this is a thought process for the arrangement and use of the elements of design. So the artist who works with the principle of good composition will create a more interesting piece. It will be arranged to show a pleasing rhythm and movement. So the center of interest will be strong and the viewer will not work. A good knowledge of composition is essential in producing good artwork. So some artists today like to bend and ignore these rules, and by doing so are experimenting with different forms of expressions. So the following slide, you will able to know the important principle in composition. So visual balance. So visual balance is the sense that as design is equally weighted in both sides of its vertical center. So all works of art possess some form of visual balance, a sense of weighted clarity created in the composition. The artist arranged balance to set the dynamics of a composition. So when we say dynamic of composition, it is the attention-grabbing, high energy and exciting. It's not predictable, so to convey these images with dynamic composition uses angle and uneven spacing without elements. So a really good example is in the work of Piet Mondrian, whose revolutionary paintings of the early 20th century used non-objective balance instead of realistic subject matter to generate the visual power in the work. So Piet Mondrian was a Dutch painter and art theoretician. So he is best known for his abstract paintings made from square and rectangular. So in example below, you can see that where the white rectangle is placed make a big difference in how the entire picture plane is activated. So the example on top left is weighted towards the top, and the diagonal orientation of the white shape makes the area a sense of movement. So the top middle example is weighted more towards the bottom but still maintain a sense that the white shape is floating on the top right. So the white shape is nearly up the picture plane together, leaving most of the remaining area usually empty. So this arrangement works if you want to have a feeling of loftiness, or simply to direct the viewer's eyes to the top of the composition. So the lower left example is perhaps the less dynamic. The white shape resting at the bottom edge of the ground. So the overall sense here is restful, heavy, and without a dynamic character. So the bottom middle composition is weighted decidedly towards the bottom right corner. But again, the diagonal orientation of the white shape leaves some sense of movement. So lastly, the lower right example places the white shape directly in the middle of on a horizontal axis. So this is visually the most stable, about lacks any sense of movement. So refer to this sixth diagram when you are determining the visual weight of specific artwork. So there are three basic forms of visual balance. It is symmetrical, asymmetrical, and radial. So the next reporter will report it. Thank you.
Symmetrical balance. Symmetrical balance is the most visually stable and characterized by an exact or nearly exact compositional design on either or both sides of the horizontal or vertical axis of the picture plane. Symmetrical compositions are usually dominated by central anchoring elements. The moon jellyfish fits this ghostly leap against a black background but absolutely symmetry in its design. But symmetry inherent stability can sometimes preclude a static quality. The visual busyness of the shape and patterns surrounding the figure are balanced by their compositional symmetry, and the walls of plane behind Vajrakelayya tilts to the right as the figure itself tilts to the left. Tibetan scroll painting used the symmetry of the figure to symbolize their power and spiritual presence. Vajrakelayya, a deity who embodies the enlightened activity of all the Buddhas. Spiritual paintings from other cultures employ the same balance for similar reasons. Sano di Pietros, or Madonna of Humility, painted around 1440, is centrally positioned, holding the child Christ. The use of symmetry is evident in three-dimensional arts too. A famous example is the Gateway Art in St. Louis, Missouri, commemorating the westward expansion of the United States. Its stainless steel frame rises over 600 feet into the air before gently curving back to the ground. Another example is Richard Sierra's Tilted Spires. The four massive slabs of steel show a concentric symmetry and take on the organic dimension as they curve around each other, appearing to almost hover above the ground.
So asymmetry uses compositional elements that are offset from each other, creating a visually unstable balance. So asymmetrical visual balance is the most dynamic because it creates a more complex design construction. So asymmetrical balance or asymmetry means that the two halves of the work of art are different, however, try to create balance. So in other words, although the sides may not be exactly the same, but there will be elements that interact in a way that makes each side equally important. So asymmetrical balance in art is when each half is different but has equal visual weight. So, I'm going to show you some of the example of asymmetrical balance. So, Ando Horishige. So, Ando Horishige was a Japanese ukiyo-e artist considered the last great master of that tradition. So, he is best known for wood-block printing in Japan. So, this is his artwork. It was called Shinagawa on the Tokaido. So, you can see the design strength of asymmetry in his woodcut. So, Shinagawa on the Tokaido, one of a series of works that explore the landscape around the Tokaido Road. Next is Henry Moore. So Henry Moore was one of the most important British artists of the 20th century and arguably the most internationally celebrated sculptor of the period. He is renowned for his semi-abstract monumental bronze which can be seen all over the world. So here is one of his work. So in Henry Moore's reclining figure, the organic form of the abstracted figure, strong lighting, and precarious balance obtained through asymmetry makes the sculpture a powerful example in three-dimension.
Good day everyone. My name is Miran Morales. My topic today is all about radial balance. Radial balance suggests the movement from the centers of the composition toward the author, edge, or vice versa. Many times, radial balance is other forms of symmetry offering stability and a point of focus at the centers of the composition. This is the examples of radial balance. The radial balance is the examples is the rays from the sunlight, and the radial balance, the colors, textures comes from the center. That is all. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I'm Joanna Marita Gapia from BSF 1B. My assigned topic is about repetition. So what is repetition? Repetition is the use of two or more like elements or forms within a composition. The systematic arrangement of a repeated shape of forms creates pattern. So, repetition daw is kung kibali na duha nimo ka color tapos imuha nang dunganon or dili man imuhang testingan na og bagit kanang dapat kanang duha ka color. So imo nang balik-balikon sa kanang pamaagi maka-create na ka og pattern. Pattern creates rhythm. The lyric of syncopated visual effect that helps carry the viewer and artist idea throughout the work. A simple but stunning visual pattern created in this photograph in an orchard by Jim Wilson of the New York Times combines color, shape, and direction into a rhythmic flow from left to right. Setting the composition on a diagonal increase the feeling of movement and drama. So, ang pattern down is nag-create siya og rhythm or balance sa kanang imuhang nahimo na art para mas dali siya ma-identify as kung sa imuhang pasabot ana na art nimo. A traditional art of Australian Aboriginal culture uses repetition and pattern almost exclusively both as decoration and to give symbolic meaning to images. The kolamon or carrying vessel picture below is made of tree bark and painted with stylized patterns of colored dots, indicating paths landscapes, or animals. You can see how fairly simple patterns create rhythmic undulations across the surface of the work. The design on this particular piece indicates it was probably made for ceremonial use. We'll explore Aboriginal works in more depth in the Other Worlds module. So, ang kwan daw sa traditional sa art sa Australian is nagamit sila og repetition of pattern bilang decoration or symbol sa isa ka pictures like ani naisay ilhanan nga gikan na siya dira nga lugar kibali pinaagi ana nga mga art mailhan siya nga sa ilaha na gikan. Rhythmic currencies take place visual form from when subordinated by others. Element of line and shape coalesce into a formal matrix that supports the leaping salmon of in Alfredo Aragon's Malila diptych. Abstract arches and spirals of water reverberate in the scales, eyes, and gills of the fish. Aragon creates two rhythmic beats here. That of the water flowing downstream to the left and fish gracefully jumping against it on their way upstream. So si Alfredo Aragon's Malila diptych nag-create daw siya og duha ka rhythmic beats sa kaniyang nga drawing. Like iba kaniyang ang isda daw ibalik ang isda ni sabay siya sa flow sa tubig. The textile medium is well suited to incorporate pattern into art. The warp tone and width of the yarns create natural patterns that are manipulated through position, color, and size by the weaver. The Tlingit culture, coastal British Columbia produced spectacular ceremonial blankets distinguished by graphic patterns and rhythms in stylized animal forms separated by hierarchy or of geometric shapes. The symmetry and high contrast of the design is stunning in its effect. So, ang Tlingit culture daw sa British Columbia is nag-produce sila kanina art bilang nabayay kanang tibali sa parehanang sa kasal taraw or mga unsang klase nga ceremonial is na sila'y mga inani. Many example sa ceremonial blanket. Morani. That's all. Thank you.
Good morning everyone, I'm Shaina Ibon nga will tackle about scale and proportion. Scale and proportion show the relative size of one form in relation to another. Scalar relationships are often used to create illusions of depth on a two-dimensional surface, the larger form being in front of the smaller one. The scale of an object can provide a focal point or emphasis in an image. In a Winslow Homer watercolor, A Wood Shot, A Deer on Ducks, the deer is centered in the foreground and highlighted to assure its place of importance in the composition. In comparison, there is a small puff of white smoke from a rifle in the lit center background, the only indicator of the hunter's position. So scale is that refers to the relative size of an object compared to another, typically the size of the artwork to the viewer's body. Scale can also refer to the size relationship of different values within a singular piece of art. And the proportion refers to the different sizes of the individual parts that make up on one object. For example, proportion in visual arts are essential when drawing the human figure. Realistic human proportion make for more lifelike portrayal. In contrast, unrealistic proportion create a more cartoonish or abstract look. And scale and proportion are incremental in nature. Works of art don't always rely on big differences in scale to make strong visual impact. A good example of this is Michelangelo's sculptural masterpiece Pieta from 1499. And here are the picture of Michelangelo's Pieta. So, here Mary cradles here did the two figures forming a stable triangular composition. Michelangelo sculpts Mary to a slightly larger scale than the dead Christ to give the central figure more significance, both visually and psychologically. And when scale and proportion are greatly increased, the result can be impressive, giving a work commanding space or fantastic implications. René Margaret's painting Personal Values construct a room with objects whose proportions are so out of whack that it becomes an ironic play on how we view everyday items in our lives. American sculptor Claes Oldenburg and his wife Conchie van Bruggen create works of common objects at enormous scales. Their stake reaches a total height of over 53 feet and length 2 floors of the Dallas Museum of Art. As big it is, the work retains a comic and playful characteristic, given in part to its gigantic size. And that's all. Thank you.
Today, my name is Angel Sabinion and I'm going to tackle about emphasis. So what is emphasis? So emphasis is the area of primary visual importance, can be attained in a number of ways. We've just seen how it can be a function of differences in scale. So emphasis can also be obtained by isolating an area or specific subject matter through its location or color, value, and texture. Main emphasis in a composition is usually supported by areas of lesser importance, a hierarchy within an artworks that activated and sustained and different levels. So emphasis is the principle of art that helps the audience put the story of a painting together in their own minds. Any object or area of emphasis is called a focal point. So the focal point is meant to be the part of an artwork to which the viewer's eye are first attracted. So take note, artworks can have multiple focal points. So these are example of emphasis. So in the left side, so the emphasis or the focal point of that painting is the white chest piece. In the right side is the red hood. So one example of emphasis is the artwork of Francesco de Goya. So Francesco de Goya was a Spanish romantic painter and printmaker. He is considered the most important Spanish artist of the late 18th and 19th centuries. His painting, drawings, and engraving reflected contemporary historical upheavals and influenced important and the 19th and 20th century painter. So this is one of the famous painting of Francesco de Goya, which is the 3rd of May 1808. So as you can see, the focal point or the Francesco de Goya emphasis in this painting was the man who wore a white long sleeve. So even though his location is left of center, a candle lantern in front of him acts as a spotlight, and his dramatic stance reinforces his relative isolation from the rest of the crowd. Moreover, the soldiers with their aim rifles create an implied line between themselves and the figure. There is a rhythm created by all the figures' heads, roughly all at the same level throughout the painting, that is continued in the soldier legs and scabbard to the lower right. Goya counters the horizontal emphasis by including the distant church and its vertical tower in its background. In terms of idea, Goya's narrative painting gives witness to the summary execution of Spanish resistance fighters of Napoleon's armies on the night of May 3, 1808. He possesses the figure in the white shirt to imply crucifixion as he faces his own death, and his compatriots surrounding him either clutch their faces in disbelief or stand stoically with him looking their executors in the eyes. While the carnage takes place in front of us, the church stands dark and silent in the distance. So the genius of Goya in his ability to direct the narrative content by the emphasis he places in his composition. So that's all. Thank you.
Good day. For today, let's talk about time and motion. By the way, I'm Floridine Balili and this is
Good day everyone, I am Edeline Hawom. Now, I am going to discuss the topic that was assigned to me, which is all about the unity and variety. Ultimately, a work of art is the strongest when it expresses an overall unity is composition and form, a visual sense that all parts fit together, that the whole is greater than its parts. This sense of unity is projected to encompasses the idea and meaning of the work too. This visual and conceptual unity is sublimated by the variety of elements and principles used to camera it. We can think of this in terms of a musical orchestra and its conductor, directing many different instruments, sounds. This is where the objective functions of line, color, pattern, skill, and all the other artistic elements and principles yield to a more subjective view of entire work and form that an appreciation of the aesthetics and meaning it resonate. Okay, these are the example of unity and variety. Exactly makes use of nearly every element and principle, including shallow space, a range of values, colors and textures, asymmetrical balance, and different areas of emphasis, unity of her composition stays strong by keeping the various parts in check against each other and the space they inhabit.